call to order this budget overview workshop number 2 for the Siloam Springs Board of Directors, October 19th, 2021. Philip?
Nina?
Before moving on to the detailed budgets, I'd like to circle back to a couple of questions from the prior meeting. This slide has been edited to include the cost of each significant project. Again, this is not a full list of the assets and projects. We will cover those during the department reviews. At the last meeting, I pointed the board to page 1 of the budget book for an expanded list of revenues. Those numbers do not match the budget slides provided at the first meeting. The difference between the slide shown, which was presented at the last meeting, and the list of revenues on page 1 is that this slide is meant to show how the city meets the legal requirements for a balanced budget. Pages 1 and 2 are simply a list of all of the anticipated revenues and expenses for the budget year. Meeting the legal requirements of a balanced budget means revenues are equal to or greater than expenses on a cash basis. It also requires that restricted funds are used appropriately. When the city receives restricted revenues, they're immediately placed into a restricted reserve account. And when we use these funds for the purposes that meet their restrictions, we call those funds a draw from reserves. So while the city anticipates just over $8 million in restricted revenues, the draws from reserves total about $18.7 million. That is all the numbers there in purple under revenue. Most of these funds were accumulated in prior years and will be used for debt service related to the water treatment plant improvements. The city may also exclude non-cash expenses from the calculation of a legal budget, the idea being that the city must provide enough cash to cover its actual payments. The items in blue were pulled directly from the previous slide. These are projected unrestricted revenues and expenses. Aside from power cost, which we discussed at the last meeting, there's one reconciling item in revenue and one in expense. In the previous slide, we used draws from reserves to show how restricted revenues will be used in the 2022 budget. However, on page 1, it only lists the amount of restricted revenue that the city expects to receive. In expense, the reconciling item is depreciation funded capital. These numbers have been historically excluded from page 2, but staff will add them back in the future to remove the reconciling item. The next 2 slides are presented to show that the reconciliation agrees with page 1 and page 2. So if you look on this slide in the middle, revenue, page 1, 75.3. I've circled this here. The grand total is 75.3. Expenses are 87.8. And here on page 2, 87.8. Are there any questions related to the reconciliation of the budget summary to the page 1 and page 2? Now I'll walk you through the highlights of each fund, beginning with the general funds. After covering the highlights, I'll ask for questions before moving on to the next fund. Please hold your questions until the end of each fund. Unless otherwise stated, comparisons are to prior year budget. So we'll begin with the general fund administration revenue on page 4. There's an increase of 12% in property taxes based on trend. 2 weeks ago, we discussed sales tax relative to current year projections and prior year actual numbers. Sales tax for 2022 is budgeted 20% higher than 2021, but only 3% higher than the anticipated 2021 actual receipts. Private grants decreased by $369,000. 2021 included the Sager Creek Stream Mitigation Project. County sales tax is up 39% based on trend after accounting for the reduction in the pro rata share. The total increase in revenue is 12%. Approximately 9% of this increase is due to the budgeted transfers in 2022. The budgeted transfers are based on policy. On page 5, we'll start with expenditures. Personnel costs are up 3% compared to prior year. This includes the proposed 5% COLA. Healthcare costs are unchanged, but there were changes in healthcare benefit elections reducing those costs. There are no changes to the personnel schedule on page 7. Overall, operations remained relatively flat. Telephone costs decreased by over $10,000. Phone service is no longer through Cox. It's now a software license through Microsoft Teams. You will see an increase in software costs in the finance budget, but overall, the city is saving over $30,000 annually. Materials and supplies are lower by $5,000 or 25%. The 2021 budget included additional fire-safe filing cabinets for HR. City events increased 67% or $22,500 to accommodate more cultural events and improvements to lighting and sound at the amphitheater. Marketing, tourism, and economic development increased $6,000 or 13% to implement the board goal of developing an overall communications plan that would include video production. Funding levels for Main Street and the Chamber are the same as last year. $2,000 was added to the budget for continuing COVID-19 expenses such as masks, sanitizers, gloves, etc. There's a transfer of $500,000 to the street fund. This is for the Lake Francis rebuild. On page 6, capital includes a new outdoor warning system, boardroom equipment, a compensation plan study, a traffic study for Allen Elementary, and a citizen survey. 2021 was higher and included Main Street design and the Sager Creek stream mitigation. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Christina, where was, I was lollygagging over here, the amphitheater sound and lighting?
City events.
Huh?
City events.
City events.
Thank you.
Is that under the capital outlay?
Under
No, it's under
administrator.
the operations, the account line, city events.
For administration, right?
That is correct. We don't believe that the improvements will necessarily meet the capital expense requirement. If they do, then we'll have to come back in front of the board and ask to move some money from that operations line over to the capital expense line.
Why is it named city events?
It's all as part of that fund that Holland has used to put on city events, and we just put the money in there because it's related to putting on those events.
That's an intangible item, and what Brad has just brought up is lighting and sound for the amphitheater, which is a physical capital improvement, correct?
If it's greater than $5,000, it would be a capital improvement, correct. If it's less than $5,000, it's not considered a capital expense.
And what do you believe it's gonna be?
I don't believe it's going to be more than $5,000 based on my discussion with Holland. We originally talked to some individuals for lighting, to put permanent lighting there. But where I think we're headed today is the sound engineer that we have been hiring to do some of the events is going to add lighting to his equipment that he provides. And it won't be a permanent lighting fix. It'll be as part of that sound equipment that they do and include some lighting as part of that. And that's why it's under that cost of events rather than necessarily an actual piece of equipment that we're buying.
Well, even if you remove the 5,000, say it is 5,000, for what you've budgeted for city events, you've increased that amount by about 55 to 60%. Is there some reason?
Yes. The board's goal was that we would do more cultural events. So we're planning on doing more events at Memorial Park than what we have historically done. So that's part of that increase. Part of that increase also is to cover the additional lighting as part of the sound engineer's proposal to provide that lighting for those musical events and other events that occur there. So that's why it's all under city events from the standpoint of trying to do more events based on the board's goal to do more multicultural events. Part of that, and then again, part of the lighting issue and sound.
I understand, but you're dropping, if you cut out the 5,000, you're at 51,000, and that is quite a large jump from 33 to 51,000.
It is our,
hang on.
I'm sorry.
When you are referencing board goals, I'll remind you, I've not had any say in that because we've not had that come back up for the board to re-examine its board goals with new board members. So I'm just saying it seems like a large amount percentage-wise. I have no problem with the amount of money. It just seems large for the percentage. Thank you.
Traffic study for Allen Elementary.
The stimulus for the traffic study for Allen Elementary is all of the traffic that's occurring there during the school hours. We met with the school district and looked at trying to find different ways to align some of that traffic, different ways for the buses to access their property. And in the end, we felt the only real way that we might be able to get a handle on it is to hire a traffic engineer to do a real study on it. And the school district has agreed to split the cost of that. I'm not, if I remember right, we were thinking that the cost was probably about $30,000. We wanted to add a little bit of money just for inflation from that standpoint. So I don't think we'll spend all 20 on it. But the school, at least the last time we talked earlier this summer at the beginning of the school year, they agreed to split the cost, and at that time it was $30,000, $15,000 each.
I think it's needed. That's very congested there.
Philip, not only at Allen, but also at Southside. I mean, if we're going to do one, we need to take care of all of it because it is, it's,
Probably drive down the street on Tulsa.
I can't get down Tulsa Street. The turn lanes are full. You have to go around people in the turn lanes, and it's just, it's a mess. And,
We'll be happy to have that discussion with the school. I'm not 100% sure that they would agree to do both, but we'll be happy to have that discussion, and if we can get both done, we may have to amend the budget accordingly, but it needs to be done, I agree.
What would the school have to say about it? Do they control the streets?
No, sir, they offered to split the cost of the traffic study at Allen first. So I
Well-
would ask them to consider splitting the cost at Southside also.
The backup going both directions in front of Allen's also goes to the next school over and has been a serious, serious problem for several years. The one that Marla's talking about, I've seen myself, and it doesn't make sense why the school would not give part of their land that is being unused right there on the south side of Tulsa to allow an additional lane to make it to where the cars that are trying to turn can get out of the actual traffic. And so that's something they may not want to do, but they're certainly not using all that property where they tore down the old high school, and it would definitely alleviate the backed up cars down Tulsa Street.
That was part of the idea at Allen, at the school over there, was to try to find possibly a new road or a new drive that might realign or redirect the traffic patterns. And so, Director Allen, you're exactly right. At Southside, it might be the same thing.
At Allen, the state built something, but it was just not ever adequate. And when you put the two school traffics meeting each other, it's like an obstacle course. If anybody hadn't been over there, go over there at 3:15, 3 o'clock. It's crazy.
Definitely an obstacle course, and with
Yeah.
Don Hill intersection right there
Yeah.
in the middle
Yeah.
of it. So that's the intended goal, is to see if there's a better traffic pattern that we could come up with to improve that. And again, at Southside, it would be something we'd be happy to have a discussion with traffic engineer about and go from there.
Madam Mayor.
And if,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, if you wanted, I mean, you could, add another $20,000 to that budget item, and we could see if we could get both traffic studies done and partner with the school, or we could come back at a later date and amend the budget. That would be the board's decision. Sorry.
No, that's fine. As a parent whose kids were at all of those schools not too long ago, few years, but not too long ago, it is a nightmare at all those areas. So I am very supportive of whatever can be done to maybe figure out other ways to make that traffic flow better in both of those areas. Allen Intermediate School and Southside, I know there are times when I find myself going east on Sherry Whitlock around 3 o'clock and then kicking myself thinking, what was I thinking? Even Sherry Whitlock just gets crazy there in that whole intersection. So supportive of that, supportive of the adding events that meet our goal for more cultural types of things. I'm going to go ahead and mention this again. It's probably just my opinion. I mentioned it last year. I still have a little bit of issue with spending $18,000 on boardroom drapes, but I'm just going to say it and be done with it.
Oh, hang
Did,
on.
did that actually,
Mayor.
did that actually get spent already?
No, we have,
I was gonna ask, when I saw it, I was like, well, where'd this come from? Because I've never seen a problem with these drapes.
well, these drapes are as old as the building,
Oh.
and they have never been cleaned. And so we have been looking at putting a shade to replace the drapes, because the drapes were much more expensive. I don't think the shades are gonna cost 18 grand. I don't have the number in my head.
Definitely
but
wouldn't want to
it's-
spend $18,000 for this again,
No.
but
What are the shades going to do? When you do a shade, there's always a crack on the side that lets light all the way down, whereas this is blocking the afternoon sun.
The shades you're correct, but I don't know that they're gonna make it a little darker. There will be some light around it, but they'll be, I think, a little darker than what's showing right there behind the mayor and behind you today.
Right between where they come together already. on those. But after a while, the backing of those drakes will begin to deteriorate from the sun.
Madam Mayor,
Uh,
Philip, I want to go back to the school situation,
Yes,
the
ma'am.
traffic. Would it make any difference since the road by Allen is considered a highway? Highway 43, Arkansas, RDOT, is there anything
Well-
that we can appeal to them about?
In order to appeal to them, we have to have a study to be able to
First.
show what needs to be done. I'm not sure we're necessarily talking about major improvements to Highway 43. One of the things that we were looking at trying to figure out is, could we put a driveway either off Highway 43 coming south behind the school, or somehow improve the driveways off Sherry Whitlock and route the parent traffic that way and move the bus routes to a different route than they're currently taking. We talked about a number with the school, we talked about a number of different traffic patterns, but there was a constant conflict between buses and parents picking up and dropping off and the buses picking up and dropping off. So the idea is to try to get some other professional to come in and take a look at it and see what needs to be done. If there are improvements or curb cuts coming off the highway, then we're gonna have to get RDOT involved. Yes, they would have to approve anything. If it's all related to Sherry Whitlock, RDOT wouldn't be a part of it. Mm-hmm.
Philip, you have boardroom equipment update. You're talking about video cameras, is that right?
Video cameras, recorders, and the ability to push that out onto the cable TV channel and also onto the web.
I personally liked Granicus, and I wish we still had Granicus. I know you told me it was too expensive at $30,000, but you were able to do a whole lot more than you can do with YouTube. And I'm glad you're gonna redo the video cameras, because we're looking like a 1980s VHS tape when you watch it
Yes, that is true.
online. You know what I'm talking about, it's pretty grainy. I don't know, where did you get 125? It seems like an awful lot of money.
It's a lot of equipment to replace. Sam in IT is the one who looked at what it's gonna cost.
Would be
We've had,
these,
and all the equipment that's back there and all the equipment that's, I think, in that room that you don't
oh,
see.
okay. Yeah,
I can
forget
tell
about
you that,
closet.
yes, sir, and I can tell you that since my time here, we have constantly had issues with the broadcasting of the board meetings, and trying to look into it, it kind of feels a little bit like the outdoor warning systems, that some of them are being held together with Band-Aids and rubber bands, and if we're gonna do it, I think it's appropriate to do it right, and that means replacing almost all the equipment that we have.
Well, within that amount, I wish you would reevaluate Granicus, because I think it gave the public a lot better access and being able to jump between sections of the meeting. The next thing down, the compensation plan study, what is that?
It's a study of our pay plan, our compensation schedules. Director Allen, when I arrived here, every position had their own separate pay scale. And so, to use administrative assistants as an example, we may have had 4 administrative assistants and their pay scales were different, but they were doing basically the same job for Public Works or Electric or whoever. So internally, we created a compensation plan that looked at information from the Arkansas Municipal League. We did our own internal survey of what those positions were being paid in the corridor and to cities that are comparable to Siloam Springs in population. But we really haven't, other than looking at a handful of those positions since we created that, we haven't really looked at the whole picture again. So the idea is to bring in a consultant to really study the market for those positions, study our competition, and where should we be, because I don't think we're ever going to be able to pay the same dollar amounts that maybe Fayetteville is paying the same type of employees and in the corridor, but we need to figure out where we need to be on that scale. And if it's at the 75th percentile of the average in the corridor or the 80th percentile, we need to be able to figure that out and monitor that over time. And the other part of that compensation plan is also to look at benefits, to compare our benefits to the benefits in the corridor. As a city that generally has to compete with larger cities for those employees, one way to try to do that is you might not be able to pay as much on an hourly wage, but maybe you have a slightly better or even more than slightly better benefit plan. So we'd like to bring a consultant in, have them look at all of that, have them determine what the value of those individual jobs are to the city based on market surveys and market research, and help us define what that is and where our pay plan needs to be in relationship to the cities that we're in competition with, not only that are similar to us, but more importantly, the cities in the corridor that, you know, we're always competing with.
Next on the list, you have citizen survey. What is?
So one of the things that is on that list of goals that you mentioned was to have a discussion, and I think we were going to try to do it in the first quarter of next year, about an internal citizen survey versus an external citizen survey. I mean, internal being that staff does it ourselves. One thing that cities generally do is to conduct a survey of their citizens to try to get a feel for how do they feel about recycling, how do they feel about their garbage pickup, how do they feel about their road conditions, their parks, to try to get some baseline information of what are the citizens thinking, and then maybe every 3 to 5 years do it again so you can see the trends, that if it's recycling and they want more options and we give them more options, well, how did that change that thought process over time? And to my knowledge, the only citizen survey that I could ever find that the city has done is one that we did back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018, with the help of a JBU grad student that did it internally. But that's what that citizen survey is. We had a lot of discussion at the Broadband Advisory Committee about doing a citizen survey for broadband, and should it roll into a citizen survey of a general nature. And the consensus was we needed to keep them separate so that if you're doing a broadband survey, you don't get caught up in survey fatigue and at the end you're just answering questions. So that's what that's for, is a true citizen survey to check the pulse of various things that citizens have concerns about.
We just hired a consultant for $235,000 to do exactly what you just described. And now we're going to pay $20,000 to do again. I was involved in these comprehensive plans years and years ago, and when you hire a consultant to do it and they don't follow through with suggestions from the board, such as what was said here about putting something in the electric bill for seniors, doing something like that, I think this is great, $20,000, but I think when you look at the results so far, and we have seniors who don't use the internet, and they're the lowest responding group on your comprehensive plan, I don't know why we're doing the same thing twice, it sounds like. And then lastly, I'd had a question on the flashing speed limit signs. Have we already bought these?
Yes.
Because didn't you tell me you had thought maybe we'd get some more?
We had budgeted for these, and then I believe the police department bought a couple of more in their budget, yes.
Okay, that's what I didn't know if
excuse me, maybe the police department has them in their current budget.
Well, that's what I was wondering, is if the additional ones
yes,
would be in their budget. Okay.
And through they worked so well through the contingency that I had, we purchased one and purchased another one later this year. So I think currently right now we have 4 of those flashing speed limit signs.
I think they work great.
For each road.
Yeah.
So we only bought one set, originally only budgeted for one set. We have one set, I think, currently on Don Hill by the First Baptist Church. And there's been some discussion that we might ought to just leave them there permanently. They're intended to be mobile. You can set them here and leave them there for a month, move them somewhere else. But based on some of the numbers that we saw, and they seem to be making a difference. So we thought we might just leave them
I think
there.
I told you, you can't have people change their behavior unless they are geared to it, and these things help in that way. I think they're smart. I'm glad you're getting some more.
And if I may, in this citizen survey, it wouldn't be an online citizen survey. It would be a statistically valid, either mailed or phone survey. That would be the intent.
Philip,
Yes, sir.
hey, let me get in real quick. The traffic study on both schools, I'd like to make a recommendation that we throw another 20 in for Southside, even though it may not be necessary. I support that. I'll use the new high school as an example. Back in the day when we started Progress and did the updates to Tahlequah Street, and then you could tell where we dropped off Tahlequah Street and where Tahlequah narrows off Lincoln, before Lincoln, actually, off Country Club. That is a major cut through now. And it flows, but it gets plugged up. But we do have arterial outlets, but people seem to gravitate towards the center of town. The locals do, and nobody wants on Sherry Whitlock because of some of the traffic of these others. So I think that's significant because we're not getting any smaller. And people are obviously making children, so that's a reality. Also in our city and town magazines over the past couple of years, if you take the time to read some of the alternative transportation articles out there, why we do connectivity, when kids used to ride bikes to school and walk and things of that nature is one of those big projects that I'm glad we're continuing to pursue, but it is a cultural change, and I would say with the diversity of our community, there are people, and you will see them, kids that are walking and riding bikes, and there are no sidewalks, which is a hazard and is a major safety concern outside of somebody inside of a vehicle with all the safety precautions. So I just encourage us to be on top of that because we're behind the 8 ball on many projects that were handed down, and I just hate to see us get farther behind on this one. So thank you.
Director Burns, I think you're right. That section of Tahlequah between, say, Hyco and Country Club is one that's, I think, on our radar. We did apply for some grants through the regional planning and did not get them for that section by the railroad tracks.
Right.
But we're not going to let it go. We'll keep pushing that
Oh,
forward.
yeah. I think the bus route changed. They changed a little bit. They were using that as a main one, and I think even they adapted around it so they don't get caught by the train. But I mean, that's just one. Every school has a traffic problem. I think the two that were mentioned are much more significant. But definitely with the expansion of some of the outdoor facilities that are going to happen there at the high school, and that area is just going to grow, and so we'll wake up one day and I don't know if any of us will be here, but it'll be a problem. Thank you.
I would be in support of adding an extra 20,000 for the study at Southside.
Is there any objection to us going ahead and making that change before we ask you to vote on the budget? Okay, thank you.
Police revenue begins on page 8.
I'm going to, we historically have set 3 people at this table, but I'm going to let the chief now sit in the hot seat, and I'm going to move to my seat over there. I'll still be available for any questions if that happens.
Thank you, Philip.
Revenue on page 8. Local sales tax increased by 20%. and SRO grant program overtime is expected to increase by $5,000 or 33%. Donations for 2022 includes the school district's share of a communications antenna. Lot fee insurance turnback is expected to increase 15%. This is a function of payroll. AR ETS 911 board income will decrease by 8% or $20,000. Taxes funding this revenue source and the distribution has changed. Government grants are expected to increase 92% or $22,000 for increased STEP grant funds. Overall, revenues are expected to increase by about $207,000 or 12%. Expenditures begin on page 9. Personnel costs increase by $617,000. The main driver for this increase is the addition of 3 new positions and a significant change in the pay plan. The pay plan includes raising the minimum hourly rate to $18 per hour and providing minimum step increases for all ranks from officer through captain. Additionally, at the request of the department, holiday pay will be paid as a bonus check rather than be included in their base pay. 3 officers were added. The deputy chief position and 1 captain position were replaced with 1 sergeant position and 40 hours of part-time officer hours. These changes are reflected in the personnel schedule on page 12. 1 retirement is included in the increased personnel costs. The retirement payout is included in benefit pay. Another personnel cost item of note is that holiday overtime is now a separate account throughout the budget. This is to accommodate a change in software. Overall, operations increased just under $20,000. However, a number of accounts changed. Here are the changes over $5,000. Insurance increased by $15,000 or 21%. Property, auto, and workers' compensation insurance have all increased for 2022. Weapons and equipment decreased by 22% or $7,000. Small tools and equipment increased $10,000 or 66% for 6 new radios. STFE system support and supplies increased by $21,000. This is the first year for the Motorola warranty. STFE uniforms protective equipment decreased by 70% or $14,000 for the purchase of protective equipment. And STFE weapons and equipment decreased by $12,000. Dues and training increased by $5,000 or 10% for new personnel. On page 11, capital outlay, which is purchased with public safety tax funds. This year, the main purchase for PD is vehicles, including leased vehicles. Other purchases include a building and fence around the training center and a communications antenna. Most of the remaining public safety tax funds will be used to repay utilities for the AWIN citywide radio system. Are there any questions related to this fund?
Chief, do we have body cams on our officers?
No, sir, not at the current time. We have discussed that, and it's something we will be looking at in the future.
I would really encourage that we do it. I think it doesn't just protect our officers, but it protects the city as a whole, liability-wise. And everything I've read over the years is that as much as there was pushback when they first started doing them, the officers now actually appreciate them. So I haven't looked at all the things on the capital outlay, but I would encourage us to consider adding body cams at some point here soon.
Yes, sir. We've discussed that, and again, that's something that I'm looking at in the near future. Right now, it's just trying to get the Motorola
Yeah.
Project paid for, and that'll be done in the next probably year.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, if I could ask you a quick question. Have you spoken with the Walmart neighborhood manager, the neighborhood market manager about body cams? I believe if you would, I believe they would be interested in perhaps doing a grant with the city of some sort for that. I know he spoke to me at one time about they really support the police and
Tell me
fire
his-
department.
You know his name? I'm
So I think she knows his name.
His first name's Jesse. I'll get you his number.
That would be great, Judy, if,
Last name's James.
I started to write that, and I didn't.
I'll get you his number.
Along those lines, so the body cams were brought up before. The last police chief reassured us they weren't needed because the training was so intense at your department that you were above the body cam. So we addressed that. That was a response. I think one of the conversations that were had, and I believe you're in the loop, is when we look at extending this sales tax to one of those major, because it is a significant purchase. One of those was the sales pitch on that was the body cams. I think that was a conversation we had at one point. So I just, I mean, we've looked at it, and I'm glad Director Allen brought it back up. And I know it's on your radar. The second would be for me is translators. And it's just not your department, but across the board. And when I look at that number right there, and I think of the diversity of our community, in the STEP program, if we have a bilingual officer, is he or she, that individual making, is there any consideration in that hourly rate? That's a skill set? Or is this, how does that translate with this 2,500?
Yes, sir. The way we've done it, the way we do it currently is we have translator lines, and then I have several officers on staff. They come in and do our translations for us. I've looked at doing different pay scales for that. That's something we're also looking at, is just as part of their skill set, such as being a K-9 handler, a SWAT member. That's something that's vital to our department. So yes, sir, that's something we're looking at.
Thank you.
Chief, on what Brad just said, I completely agree, but I'm not sure. Every time I see an officer, they have their own phone. Do we provide the phone, or are they using their own phone? I'm just saying there are apps that you can literally talk into your phone, and it will talk in a normal voice in the other language to whoever you're trying to address.
Yes, sir. We do that, and we provide phones, and we have those apps. We have to be very careful letting them use their personal phones because
Right.
of the FOIA laws.
I'm just saying there are ways that every single officer could be able to, no matter who they're interacting with, could have several languages that would be available.
And we're trying them, and we're actually
Yeah.
working at it. It takes
Okay,
a little
good.
bit to get used to it.
Cool.
But yes, good idea.
That we use that with great success in the utility billing office.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We use that program. We use a program
Yeah.
that does that, and we have had great success with that in the utility billing office.
Well, I've seen them now come out on the cell phones, and I'm just shocked how normal sounding instead of robotic sounding, so, yeah.
But the skill set for the officer that is bilingual, when you get in a situation that is emotional, psychological,
Oh, yeah.
driven, I mean, that's still a skill set. I only speak redneck, so I am not bilingual. I just,
I agree. There's some things that an app can't do. You're absolutely
right.
right, Brad, that the bilingual officer being able to diffuse a situation is most definitely valuable.
Yes, sir, and we've looked at that, Mr. Director Burns. It's part of our stipend package. It's something we're in the future, we're just trying to, the pay is our big thing right now, and moving forward, that's on our schedule also.
But I am glad to see that we are, as Christina was saying, doing decent pay increases across the board, because that's been lacking for decades, and it's something that's been needed to address, so I'm glad we're doing something about it. We've been lucky to retain the officers we have because of their desire to live in Siloam Springs. When we've not been able to compete financially with some other cities, we've been fortunate to have the ones stay that we, but there is certain amount that will always be like a training ground for the bigger cities. You can't help it, we're a smaller city. But I'm just saying, we've been fortunate, but I'm pleased to see what you're doing.
Last for me is, what are your feelings on your restructuring? Because I know you've been in that structure for a little while, and as I look at that, I know you have a vision, but you're getting rid of that one spot, and then I think, well, let's restructure that fire department. No, I'm just curious on that. What are your thoughts on your restructure?
Right now, with the increase due to the pay scale and us being a younger department, when I first arrived, we had no lieutenants. So my vision is making sure people are ready for promotion and not just promoting them because we have a need. Again, we have 2 younger captains, and they've only been in grade for about 2.5 to 3 years. I would like to see them be in grade longer. We've promoted 2 lieutenants that had only been in grade for about 6 or 8 months. So again, if we promoted a captain, then I have lieutenants that they're still trying to figure out how to be, lieutenants. They're doing a great job, but it's just, I like them to be in grade a while and learn their job before they go to that next job. We've increased our sergeants. I would like, in the future, to be able to have a deputy chief as we go and as we grow. Since Jeff's retired, I've gotten busier.
Sure,
so,
sure, yeah.
But again, it's just structuring in the hopefully next year I'll be able to add another lieutenant and possible a sergeant as we grow. Again, we have a lot of young officers, and we've promoted some recently to corporal and sergeant that are under 5 years of service.
Thank you.
Chief, I notice you're adding 6 part-time police officers? No? Oh, it said on the staff request 6.
6 would be the maximum persons that he would hire, but we actually budget part-time based on hours.
Oh, okay.
So that would enable me to do 40
to fill
hours
it
a
if you
week.
need. Okay.
So I could do.
How does a part-time police officer?
They would be certified officers that probably work at other jurisdictions, and they could come and work with us
okay.
10 to 20 hours.
Okay.
There's a minimum and a maximum they have to stay under.
Now, on your list here, do you not have, we used to have what was called CID. Do we not have any detectives? Or
Yes, sir.
what are they considered classified?
They're the detectives.
I just don't, am I not seeing it?
The way that it is put in the book is that detective is an assignment of an officer.
Oh, okay. I got you. Never mind.
Fire.
And if I might, about how long do you think we will need for fire? Because we are down to 6:20 on our time, so. Philip?
Madam Mayor, you can, we can stop and pick this up in 2 weeks, or if it's the prerogative of the board, we could go through fire, and based on your questions, you might be able to maybe not start right at 6:30, but start the board meeting a little after that. It's strictly up to the board.
So I would ask directors, what is your choice? Would you prefer that we stop at this point, or, or would you prefer to go ahead and do as much as we can on fire? And we would be starting our board meeting a little late.
Madam Mayor, I'd
Yes.
like to see the fire chief come on up.
Is that
Sounds good.
everyone in disagreement? All right, thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor, I am one
Yes.
bottle. I'm one bottle in.
Are you? We'll hope that's not a
The
problem.
unit of measure.
Don't go redneck on us.
So fire revenue begins on
I
page
know,
13.
I consumed one bottle already.
Overall, the revenue will increase by 385,000. Local sales tax increased by 20%. Ambulance services, revenues from ambulance runs are budgeted higher based on trend. Intermunicipal services will increase 5% based on the Consumer Price Index. Lot fee insurance turnback will increase as a function of payroll. So expenditures begin on page 14. The 6% increase of $234,000 in personnel costs is due to proposed raises as well as 2 additional firefighter positions. The new positions are reflected in the personnel schedule on page 17. The fire department has elected to continue to include holiday pay in their base pay and wait for the compensation plan study to adjust wage ranges. Lease costs decreased $5,300. The oxygen generator lease has ended. It's been purchased. Insurance is increasing $9,800 based on property and workers' comp insurance rates increasing. Vehicle and equipment maintenance is increasing $30,000 based on trend. Vehicle and equipment maintenance EMS is decreasing $7,000, also based on trend. EMS supplies are lower $14,000 based on trend. Grounds and building maintenance is up $8,000 based on trend. Dues and training increased $10,000 or 26% for new positions and tuition reimbursement. Dues and training EMS increased $11,000 or 20% for new positions and membership with the American Heart Association. STFE PP&E is up $5,000 for new positions. Professional fees increased $35,000 to include a community risk assessment study. Expenditures continue on page 15. The decrease in bad debt is a function of receivables, and total operations increased 4% or $38,000. On page 16, capital for the fire department in 2022 is purchased from public safety sales tax funds and consists of projects and equipment including an ambulance replacement, replacement of 2 pickups, plus a new truck to haul the hazmat trailer, and a brush truck project. Most of the remaining public safety tax funds will be used to repay the utilities for the Fire Station 2 remodel. So are there any questions related to this fund?
I have one. What is a community risk assessment study?
So, community risk assessment study is, consultant will come in and they'll identify, through use of a target and hazard identification risk assessment model, all of our target hazards within the city. They'll look at overall risk and basically will help us plan and identify what our risks currently are, which will help us in turn identify, are we meeting the current capabilities based on what our risk is for our community.
That also,
I wasn't,
about having an additional station, fire station, or not?
That will be part of what they look at, yes.
Director Smiley, would you pull the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, I need to get closer over here. Thank you.
Along those lines, so risk reduction, you know, on the corridor, they've got risk reduction divisions, which are under APERS. A lot of the guys are. We lost one. If you guys remember, David Williams went to Rogers, was our building inspector, and he went to risk reduction. He's retired from there, but that's needless information. But that's a needed, looking at our expansion, I mean, that's a no-brainer. And as we look at the future, if you were to put a time frame on extending another house somewhere, wherever that would be, what do you feel off the cuff? And it's fun because you only have like 30 seconds.
Well, no time for
I'm
rebuttal.
just, I mean, you know, in theory, outside of that, I mean, I know you guys have been thinking about it.
Sure. I've been asked that question since I got here, and I always put it in the 5 to 10 year mark. And so if that, based on the time I've been here, probably in the 5 to 7 year mark from right now.
Do you have a location in general, or is that why the study is significant?
The study will help to establish growth trends, but we have a pretty good idea just based on anecdotal evidence and what the growth pattern of the city is. And so just off the cuff, somewhere along the Highway North 59 area and the airport, as it stands today, that's where our gap in land coverage is.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief or Christina? There being none, I will adjourn this budget overview workshop. Thank you all very Call to order this meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors for October 19th, 2021. Roll call.
Sappington,
Here.
Smiley,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Bristler,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
If you all will, please rise as we have our prayer. Director Sappington will lead us in that, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the beautiful city that we live in and for the residents here that make us a family. And I just thank you so much for the fall colors that are appearing. It's your promise that as the trees and bushes and wildflowers go to sleep, that they'll be renewed in the springtime for another beautiful art exhibit for us. And we are so blessed and so fortunate to live in an area where we're free, we can worship, and we have such good people to protect us. We have fire, we have ambulance, we have our city services, and I just pray that the things that we do here as a board will uplift them and help them to do their job better. And I just pray protection over the city, and I just pray that in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask that anyone that has an electronic device, if they would please silence that or turn it off so that we don't have interruptions during our discussions. Thank you very much for that. At this time, it is public input. We're going to do this in two phases. The first is the public may address the Board of Directors regarding any item that is city business not listed on the board's regular agenda. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? If there is not, the next would be the public may address the Board of Directors regarding any item that is on our consent agenda. Is there anyone that would like to address the board? There being none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item A, workshop minutes, October 5, 2021. Regular meeting minutes, October 5, 2021. Maybe Guardrail. Item D, Resolution 5321, Arkansas Municipal League Defense Program, Opioid Case, Settlement Participation. That is the consent agenda. Directors, is there any item that you would like to remove from this agenda?
Madam Mayor, I would like to remove C.
Item C.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
D, please.
E, B.
E, Delta.
Gotcha. Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with items C and D removed?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Bristler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Director Hunt, item C.
Yes, I just want to thank staff for adding in the report that you are considering options for planting bushes and grass in front of the guardrail too. I misunderstood when you were talking about where you were going to put the one type of landscaping on the inside, and I was hoping to be able to use some to sort of hide the guardrail on the other side as well. So thank you for looking into that.
Thank you, Director Hunt. Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve item C, the guardrail?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Bristler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Director Burns, item D, Resolution 5321.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm just pulling that as a reminder to the community that that crisis is still going on. Our police and fire are still using Narcan, and it is a crisis that is not over. And unfortunately, COVID has brought about an increased use of opioids, and unfortunately a resurgence of methamphetamine. But I can only encourage AML to pursue it with, I don't know, what's the steepest vengeance you could possibly use in verbiage. It is a sad thing to see, and it's impacted rural communities for some reason that I cannot comprehend. But it is some of the stuff that our folks run on, and it is unfortunate. It's what they're exposed to on a regular basis, and it affects all sectors of society. It's just not to include the lower economic folks. So that just the word of encouragement as we pursue that, and hopefully when we go down in the winter meeting, we can continue to, maybe we'll see some progress by then, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Burns. Any other comments or questions on this item? Then do I have a motion to approve item D, Resolution 53-21?
So
Moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
yes,
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next is our regularly scheduled items. Item E and F will be together. Ordinance 21-20 and 21-21. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Yes, as the mayor stated, I'll present on both of those together since they're the same property. But just a reminder, the first ordinance is closing the unused right-of-way at 613 East University Street. And then the second ordinance there is to rezone that same property from I-1 to R3, residential 2 family. Since the first reading, we've received no additional comments or questions from the public, and staff and the Planning Commission are still recommending approval of both ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Ordinance 21-20, which is the vacation of the unnamed right-of-way?
Yes. Hi, I'm Joy Shippey, the property owner of 613 East University, and I would like to request, if possible, if I could combine the second and third reading.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Directors, is there any comments or questions on Ordinance 21-20?
Can we go ahead and put that on for its third reading as well as its second?
You may if you'd like to make a motion to that effect.
I will make that motion.
Second.
So we have an ordinance for the first and second reading for Ordinance 21-20, suspending the rules and reading title only. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen, Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
yes,
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Philip?
Ordinance number 21-20, an ordinance vacating and abandoning certain right-of-way within the Bouchamps addition to the city of Siloam Springs.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 21-20?
so moved,
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
yes,
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes. Ordinance is adopted. Next is Ordinance 21-21. Is there any comments from the audience on this ordinance? If there being none, directors?
I assume the owner would prefer us to do the second and third on this as well.
I believe that is correct.
I make that motion.
So we have a motion for ordinance 21-21 to be placed on its second and third reading, suspending the rules and reading title only. Roll call.
I'll second it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Director Reed.
Carroll,
Yes.
Dappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes?
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Philip.
Thank you.
I was-
Ordinance number 21-21, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, city zoning map, rezoning from I-1 to R3 property located at 613 East University Street.
Thank you. Now do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 21-21?
So moved?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Dappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes?
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Ordinance 21-21 is adopted. Next on our agenda is the staff reports. Philip?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Board, you have the third quarter reports update to your 2021 and 2022 goals. And you have the third quarter reports from the Chamber, Main Street, and the History Museum per their contractual obligation with the city. As it relates to any of those, if you have any questions, feel free to contact myself. And if there's questions regarding the reports from the nonprofits, I'll be happy to try to get an answer for you on those. As it relates to my administrator's report, I have 4 expenditures to report to you, all within the electric department, all related to ongoing operations and inventory. $42,980 for 25 kV single-phase pad-mounted transformers. $30,550 for 10 25 kVA pole-mounted transformers, and also 10 37.5 kVA pole-mounted transformers. And then $48,825 for 15 37.5 kVA single-phase pad-mounted transformers. All that is, again, due to ongoing growth and operations and also inventory. Sales tax receipts for September for the city were up 21.1%. For the year to date, we're up just under 16%, 15.9%. For the county, we were up 9.7%, and year to date, right at 21% on sales tax. I'm glad to report the maintenance shop has officially moved into its new facility there at Lincoln and Main Street. We began operating out of that facility yesterday. We're still moving some bits and pieces from the old facility, but they are there in operation. For fall cleanup, we had a total of 145 tons of material that was collected. Staff spent 265 man-hours collecting it through the week, and the total program cost was $8,859, $4,400 in tipping fees, and another $4,400 in labor. The commander at the VFW, Mr. Frank Lee, has issued an invitation to you as a board to attend the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1674 Annual Veterans Day program, to be held on November the 11th at 11 a.m. at the high school. That's Thursday, November the 11th. I will remind you of that at the next board meeting, but the Veterans Commander Lee wanted me to personally invite you as board members, and I thought I would do it here rather than just via an email, so that everybody's aware of it and the public is aware of it. Some time ago at the beginning of this year, we discussed the possibility of going through a study to see if we would be designated as a bioeconomic development zone. We have this fairly large opportunity zone within the city, and due to the amount of poultry litter that's produced in northwest Arkansas, we thought there might be an option to maybe get some sort of investment into a bioeconomic development project. So the press release officially went out yesterday. We received an A rating as a BDO zone, our opportunity zone. It's getting some press across the nation. I had, as a matter of fact, a conversation today with Congressman Westerman's office because they got word of the press release. But the idea is to see if the study determined that there is less risk for an investor looking to do a project in our area because there's that bio feedstock that's there, there's the transportation that's there. So the idea in the bioeconomic industry, if there are people looking to do a project, there's less risk in our BDO zone. Plus that opportunity zone, they get the capital investment benefits that are there for opportunity zones. So we've made contact with a couple of state agencies and the Winrock Foundation who are promoting opportunity zones in Arkansas through Arkansas Opportunity, Opportunity Arkansas. And also we made some contacts out in the Southwest, and there's some individuals out there that have already established a Arkansas Opportunity Investment Fund. So there is movement. Whether or not it's fruitful at some point, we'll see, but there's been some interest generated by that. I thought it was interesting getting some numbers looking at census and looking at our growth from 2010 to 2020. We averaged just about 1.5% annual growth, and I provided you a chart going all the way back to 1950 looking at the census numbers. And you can see between 1950 and 1960 we grew by 21% from 3,200 to 3,900. 1970 we almost doubled, we doubled our population from 1950, went from 3,900 to 6,000, grew by 52%. 1980, 7,900, we grew during that decade by 32%. 1990, 8,100, we grew only by 2.7% between 1980 and 1990. 1990 to 2000, we grew to 10,800, which was a 33% increase. 2000 to 2010, we reached 15,000. We grew by 38%. In 2010 to 2020, we grew to just under 17,300, and it was a 14.9% increase. So I just thought that was interesting based on the growth that we see. It's not nearly as fast as it has been in other decades, but it's still happening. There's no doubt about that. There were some discussions at the last board meeting, and I've seen some discussion on social media about electric and water bills being high. I went back and asked the utility billing office to look back at July and August and September and look at residential consumption of water and electricity. And I just kind of want to walk the board through these numbers, but for July 2021 in water, we consumed 8% less than in July 2020. And the same thing in August, between August 2021 and August 2020, we consumed 9% less in water. But in September 21, we consumed 26% higher than we did in September last year. Hot, dry, leading out of August into September. And on the electric side, again, we're talking just residential. July 21 consumption was only 1% higher than the prior year of July. August was actually lower in 2021 than in 2020 by 9%, but in September we consumed 17% more electricity than we did in September 2020. And a large part of that, I think, was because looking back at the numbers, the nights were not as cool, I think, as historically they've been. I know in my own personal experience, my air conditioner ran more at night than what I perceived it happening in times past. And then I also pulled 10 just random samples of utility consumptions of residential units, and I just wanted to pull a handful of single family and just compare those. And so what I did On the following data is to look at the median average of those 10 that I pulled. So in July from 2020 to 2021 in water, it actually increased on those 10 by 13%. That was the mid-range. The median average in August was less than last year, reduced by 10%. And the median average for September was almost 26%, which is right in there with the number that I gave you earlier for everybody. On the electric side, the median average between July for 2020 and 2021 was a negative, just over 7.5%. Same thing for August was a negative 3%. But in September, our billing consumption for September, the median average was 16% greater than it was on that bill or on those average bills a year ago. So there's not been any new charges added to any water or electric bills this year. The only difference is in the power cost adjustment. So the city includes about 2.3% of a 2.3 cents on a power cost adjustment in our rates. If your power cost adjustment from GRDA is less than 2.3, you get a credit on your bill, and we saw a credit on our bills between January of this year through June. When the power cost adjustment exceeds 2.3, that additional amount is passed through those to our customers. And we're seeing that since beginning in July, August, September, and October, that power cost adjustment has been higher. Lastly, on COVID, I know we always don't probably like to hear my numbers, but they're actually better than they have been in a while. Our numbers on new cases for a 14-day period per 10,000 population continue to decline from 62 a month ago to 12 as of the October the 11th. And I wanted to make sure that that number was correct, but that is correct per the Arkansas Center for Health Improvement. And our percentage of fully vaccinated citizenry has increased to 31%. However, the number of new cases for the week of October 11th was 31. So we're still seeing some new cases, but overall, those numbers are slowly coming down. For Benton and Washington counties, we see the same thing. Daily active cases per 1,000 population are declining. A month ago, they were at 4.2 and 4.97 for Benton and Washington County. And as of October 17th, they had dropped more than half, down to 2.0 and 2.03. So that's all positive news on the COVID front. It's still here, but the numbers seem to be coming down slowly but surely. And then lastly, it's not on my report, but the ADA fishing pier and kayak launch have been installed. We are working this week to pour concrete ADA parking spaces and the ADA sidewalk access to those to that facility. And once we get that done, we will start looking at scheduling at least maybe a ribbon cutting and have at least a thank you for everyone that donated to that project. We're working on a sign. We'll get a sign out there, and once that gets installed and we can get some stripes down. I've had some good comments on it from people I've met out there. I had one comment today through an email that the overhead handrails maybe need to be painted or bright stickers put on there. Some, I think, gentleman bumped his head on them. But I think it's going to be a wonderful improvement and a wonderful facility for the city. Madam Mayor, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda is an executive session to consider city administrator employment. Do I have a motion from?
Are we not doing the reports from the chamber and museum?
That was on your consent agenda.
Oh. I'm sorry, Director Allen?
No, I'm sorry. They were in the packet. Yes.
I know, because they were here, I thought I didn't know if they were supposed to speak or not. So.
Unless they were in your packet. So if you have a question, would like to have them come
Okay.
forward, David, you can, absolutely. Would you like
No,
for them?
no, I
No?
just didn't know if it was, if it was planned.
I'm sorry, since
Okay.
it was in your packet, yes, sir. We would let you ask a question though, however, no? All right, directors? Philip?
If I may, for the third quarter reports on that, they have generally just presented their reports and are here if there are questions. It's never, I don't think we've had them present those reports. The contract with the chamber for the makerspace required an oral report also. But Director Allen, they typically are here just in case there are questions from the board.
Thank you. Yes, I need a motion to retire into executive session.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion on the motion? There being none, roll call.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion is approved. We will now, the board has voted to retire into executive session to consider the employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, discipline, or resignation of an employee. We will reconvene in public session following this executive session to present and vote on any action arrived at in private. We will adjourn at this time to the conference room. So we will call we will call this Board of Directors meeting back to order. I will ask if there is a motion to be made at this time.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Brad.
I make a motion that we extend the city administrator's employment and to be compensated according to the employee 2022 pay raise.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion by the board for the motion? There being none, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. At this time, I will ask if the directors have anything that they would like to say as a director's report, and I will start with you, Mindy.
Okay, I'm not gonna go too long, but a couple things here. The information about the utility comparison of residential electric and water, I appreciate that information. Wondering if it might be helpful to include that information the way you spelled it out on social media, just as a way of getting information out, because there has been some concern. Our water bill went up, but I got new landscaping and I watered a whole lot in September when it got a lot hotter, and therefore our air conditioning did go up too. So it sounds like that's what's going on, but if there's a way we can communicate that, it might be helpful for our citizens to know that. Let's see. I just recently traveled to the Smoky Mountains, and while I was there, we met a couple from Utah on a hiking trail. And they asked where we were from. We said Arkansas, and she said, well, you know, my boss during COVID ended up visiting all 50 states. That was sort of on his bucket list, and he came back saying that Arkansas was his favorite state, which I thought, well, I need to share that because we're part of Arkansas. She didn't really have any reasons from him, but he just really liked Arkansas. So, and speaking of my traveling, it does really make me look at cities differently now, being on the city board. We've had an opportunity to be in lots of different cities, and a city can leave a good or a bad impression. Seen lots of good ones, seen some that aren't quite as bad. I will say that one of the cities that we went through this last weekend on our way home was Searcy, because we got routed off of 40 due to some sort of construction or something. So we went right through Searcy, and one, they have a Chick-fil-A there, not too much bigger than we are, so there's hope, possibly. And just one of the things that I noticed was just some nice landscaping in the city of Searcy. And I think that does make a big difference. That's one of the reasons why I was glad that we are looking into more landscaping around the guardrail. But our city can make a good or a bad impression, and we have a lot of opportunities in our city, and we have. I think we do give off a lot of good impressions, and I think we can just continue to build on the good impression that we're already giving. Speaking of landscaping, I did want to ask the question where we are on the 412 landscaping. So that's just something you can look at and. Perfect. Okay.
Thank you, Mindy. Brad?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Sir? Marla?
After we had asked about the utility billing, I never opened my utility bill because I'm on levelized billing, so I know what it's going to be. So I thought, hey, I'm going to open my utility bill. Yeah, there were some differences, but I was surprised. There was a sheet in there that said, did you know? And it says, if you're above a certain age, you get a $5 discount. If you are of a certain age, you get discounted rates on sanitation, and it went on and on. Take advantage of this. It's on the website, I'm sure, and it is for people that are age 65 or older or permanently disabled, that you can get these little bonuses on your bills, we'll call them. And after I shared this with some of my volunteers, because my volunteers are basically that age group, one of them said, oh, Black Hills Energy came and did an audit of my home for free and told me what I needed to do and helped me do it. And that's wonderful for our seniors that are widows, that have no help. Sons don't help as they should. So...
Excuse me.
Not
You
unless
know
from
I,
the audience.
you know I make another house payment, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
it's just-
I know. But, I think there's lots of opportunities out there, and let's just share those with everybody. If you know something, share it with your neighbor. We used to be a big sharing community. We always knew what everybody else's business was, but we also knew what was good things that we could share, and so let's do that. If you know something that will help a friend or a neighbor, let them know about it. And my last question was going to be for Ben, but he ran out. Why were homes and
Just
factories...
leave back in the back if you want to wake him.
Why were homes and factories built on alleys in the past? Do you know? Because I've seen some of those come through, and it's like, how did that happen? And I just, just a history lesson for me is, how was the city able to let things happen? We did that for Miss Shippey tonight. So that's all I have. Blessings.
Thank you, Marla. Lisa?
I just want to piggyback on the Black Hills. You do not have to be a senior or disabled to get that. We've had it done on lots of our property here in Siloam, and it's amazing. Take advantage of it if you can. And so that's all I have.
Thank you. Reed? Director Reed?
Very thankful for fall being here, the weather change. It's nice to wake up to a crisp morning. I'm very, very thankful for the maintenance facility being open. I look forward to hearing many good reports about what is happening and how they are able to improve and make this city even better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carol?
Well, first of all, I want to let people know that there is a utility clerk, billing clerk position open if you want to go on to our website. Free trees, October 30th at 8 o'clock in the morning at the library. And the Heritage League is having a rummage sale Saturday at 7 a.m., and that's always a big deal. It's at 508 South Carl. And that's it.
Thank you. And
I'm gonna
David?
piggyback there. I think if anybody looking for a job, you just need to go to the city Facebook page. We're always putting up signs that we're hiring in various departments. So, we have very good benefits, and so I think people need to remember that. Philip, I still would like us to keep an eye on the water and electric over the next few months, just because of the double-digit increase in September. And the fact that we're still experiencing something does not rule out that maybe a software update or something could have happened. I just want us to keep an eye on it.
Gotcha.
As you did a great job of evaluating it there with the sample. I had somebody send me this today and said, if we're charging all this money for special use permits for VRBO or whatever, why can't we spend some of that money to get some new signs instead of some that just have written in special, the word special, which is now faded. So that was something I was going to hand off to you, Philip. I thought it was funny, but it was also a concern of a citizen. I would like to ask that the administrator's report be added to the online agenda after the fact, simply because it's only in hard copy and it would be available for the public to be able to read. And then thank you to both of the ladies for mentioning the age discounts. And that's something else I think that Holland could put on the Facebook because not everybody reads their bill, like you said, Marla. So maybe that's something to every 4 or 5 months for somebody to, Holland to put on the Facebook page or something. I don't know. Thank you. That's all. Motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.